Why don't we go ahead and start there? Because that's a huge story and we're going to get to it.
Okay.
So thanks everyone for joining us. I'm Susan Demas, the executive editor here at Lincoln Square. Joining me as always on Tuesday morning is Edwin Eisendrath. He hosts a radio show on Heartland Signal in Chicago. You can also find it online, even if you were not from Chicago. And I urge you to do that. Also, you've probably known him from a lot of different things that he's done, including running the Chicago Sun-Times. But we always talk about the headlines every Tuesday morning because there's so much going on. And we're just kicking off by talking about Trump's tariffs. And how they're being portrayed in the media, because it's true, as I was going and looking specifically at coverage, it was all big victory for Trump. Trump secures, an asymmetric trade deal with Europe. They're not even retaliating. Isn't this great for him? Big victory. And, I seem to remember the coverage of the economy under the last president, President Biden, was all about prices are going up. Everything's terrible for you. And that's the small part of this headline, the 15% tax that now we all get to pay with this so-called deal with the EU.
Yeah. During Biden's presidency, the economy improved. Let's see. Every quarter, every single quarter, right?
And he added jobs every
month. It got better and better and better, right? And every time, what did we read? Jobs grow again. Can it last?
Right.
Price coming
The
down.
recession is right around the corner. How many headlines have you clipped on that?
Yep. Always wrong. Always gloom and doom. And this guy's getting credit for doing trade deals, but every trade deal is a 15% tariff, which is a 15% tax on American consumers of foreign goods. So while he's cutting taxes and worse, and giving our tax dollars affirmatively to rich people for things, uh, every deal he does is bad for us and bad for. And we're beginning to see that in jobs numbers. We're beginning to see it. There was a story this week about a plant that is going to have to close down because of the immigration raids. This man is terrible for our economy.
Right.
And while he's stealing money for himself, and the stealing money for himself, let's just be clear about another story this week, Susan. The Defense Department switched 900, and I wrote down the number because I wanted to talk to you about it. It's a big number, $934 million.
Almost $1 billion.
Right? They just snuck it from a line item for the upgrading of our nuclear arsenal to the replenishing of that plane that Trump took from the Qataris, right?
Mm-hmm.
That he's going to use after he leaves office. So taxpayers are giving $1 billion gift to that man personally.
Right. Because the U.S. government does not own that luxury jet. That is the property of Trump's library. But we're all on the hook for $1 billion to make it secure, which, let's be clear, it probably does need to be made secure because God knows, how compromised it was by Qatar that, has ties to a lot of terrorists. Let's be honest.
Forgive me. I disagree with that. It doesn't need to be upgraded. It needs to be back to Qatar. You know what?
Oh, absolutely. But if the president were to use it, it would be a spy plane in the sky.
Oh, he gives away our secrets anyway, Susan.
Well, this is true. In his bathroom
in Mar-a-Lago, talks about all the time. In his first administration, he outed some Israeli spies just because he felt like he wanted to share that with Sergei Lavrov, the Russian master spy. Right? He's a walking sieve of information. His defense secretary, we now know, in that Signal Gate was posting what we now know was secret documents on Signal Gate. They can't keep our secrets. They can't be trusted. So send the Qatari plane back, and we taxpayers can keep the money. And it's all related to the tariffs. It's all about screwing regular Americans so the rich guys can yuck it up and laugh as they put us in a terrible position. And I'm Susan, I'm reminded it's so hard to keep up with all the terrible things they're doing.
Mm-hmm.
But that just tells me something else, that during the previous administration and through most of normal times, it's hard to keep up with the good that government has done. And this has given me a moment to reflect on that. And I think the lack of understanding of the good that our government has done in our lives has partly responsible for everybody writing it off and now allowing this horror show to happen.
Right. Because, the mantra for the last 40, 50 years has been that government is broken. The most terrifying words you can hear, Ronald Reagan said, was, "I'm here from the government and I'm here to help." And so, um, we have had to deal with this assault on our public institutions, and they've taken a huge hit. And so, the bet that Elon Musk and that Donald Trump made was that people hated their government, so they wouldn't mind if a couple of rich guys broke it, so that more money could go to them. And we have yet to see if their bet is correct, but based on Donald Trump's poll numbers, I don't think it's going very well.
No. I mean, let's just talk about some of the things he's done to wreck the government this week. We learned that DOGE has created an AI tool that's simply going to delete federal regulations on the first anniversary of this administration, right? That's illegal, but that doesn't seem to bother these crooks, right?
Mhm.
B, who knows what they're going to delete? They're going to let people dump their garbage, their toxic waste in your backyard? They might. They might. Um, the Trump's now planning a second rescission request. Who knows what they're going to cut? But again, this just proves that Congress doesn't matter. FEMA. You just mentioned a minute ago, the most terrible thing is we're here from the government. We're not here to help. Well, the government's not going to be there to help because the
Yeah.
FEMA money is being transferred to what money they have left is being transferred to build these concentration camps that we talked about last week in a
Right.
bunch of states.
That's
Also,
why FEMA was put under the Department of Homeland Security, so it could just be basically a raid on their budget.
that's right. That's right.
And
And
we saw what's happened in Texas with the flooding and, how the emergency lines weren't being manned, how many people suffered or died because they weren't getting the help that they needed.
right. And that's going to happen again and again and again. Then they don't care.
Yeah.
Um, in New Jersey, Alina Habba, right? This horror show of a U.S.
Trump's
they put in.
attorney. Yeah.
She couldn't get confirmed.
Right.
So instead, they made her, the acting U.S. attorney so she can stay another 200 plus days. Again, a workaround of Congress, a workaround of the institutions that are supposed to protect our democracy. Um, they're trying to make a man the head of NOAA. NOAA is the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration. Of course, they're gutting that because that's how they
Climate
have
change
climate,
isn't
right?
real,
Real.
according to
But
them.
but Neil Jacobs' confirmation hearing, he was he's a bad guy, and there were two civil servants who were investigating him because he was the guy who allowed Sharpie Gate in the first.
Right.
So they
And
fired the guys who were investigating him.
right.
This is who they are. They
Yeah.
want They're lackeys in all of these positions. And then, this week, stories about the Justice Department trying to gain access to state voter files and state voting machines.
Yes.
They want to corrupt everything.
Right. And they just did that in Michigan. They've done it in Arizona, in Minnesota. It's key states, it's swing states. This is clearly political, and it's clearly something that Trump is doing because he knows that he is at risk of his party losing the midterms.
Oh, if it's a fair election, his party will lose the midterms,
Right. And so
right?
it's rigging the rules of the game.
Which they have been doing for years, right? At states, and now they've been trying to do it in the federal government. But no one has hacked voting machines, and now this is on their agenda as well.
Well, it's amazing because, during the 2020 election, there were a lot of prosecutions in key swing states like in Michigan, in Arizona, where you would have these cranks, some of which were elections officials, some of which were just, rogue MAGA activists, and they were obtaining sensitive voting information. There's a case that's still ongoing in Michigan with someone who ran for attorney general. His name is Matt DePerno, and Trump loves him. He has been implicated in a scheme where they did steal voting equipment in one
Yeah.
of our biggest counties. And now those are the folks that are being put in charge by this administration. Those are the kind of tactics that they want to bring nationwide, or at least in states that, are at risk for Republicans and Donald Trump.
Yeah, well, let's make sure that more of them are at risk. I mean, the the um the list of their crimes isn't limited to what they're doing to government, what they're doing to civil society. Um, this the attack on universities was worse this week. We saw it in George Mason, which is not, a liberal university. They,
Mhm.
they got rid of the president, and then a couple faculty members wrote a letter in support of the president. Now they're investigating those faculty members. This is such an abuse of power, and it follows the abuse in law schools. Do you know that there are teachers in red states now have to take one of those phony courses from PragerU, these propaganda courses, in order to get their certification?
Right. And
That-
Prager University is a right-wing joke of an institution that just bilks people for money. There's no learning that goes on there.
It's
And
not
and the fact
a propaganda shop, and
yes.
that's all it is.
And the fact that teachers are required to get that kind of propaganda or they can't teach, that's the real indoctrination. For all the complaints about teaching as a liberal institution, universities are basically they're imposing everything that they have accused the left of doing. That there are ideological purity tests that are being imposed on universities, or let's take a step back, because this wasn't imposed on Columbia, for instance. They gave up. They gave in. Harvard is fighting in court, but a lot of institutions are just giving in to the Trump administration, and we see this across the board, with major media companies as well. Um, Trump has been failing left and right with his tariff policy. He's even underwater on immigration, and yet institutions that are supposed to hold him accountable or be independent just keep breaking for him. Like he is some unstoppable force. And that's the kind of weakness that I feel that he and his administration were counting on.
Well, uh, chief executives in countries are powerful. I mean, this is why this is the playbook from Hungary, and
Mhm.
and other autocracies. You can take you can undermine these private interests. You can, I mean, these tariff policies are also a corruption policy, right? Because he can exempt the tariffs for a company, for a kind of product, if he feels like a company's paying him enough,
Right.
and as he can. It's all corrupt. It's just, and corruption can be. I mean, I live in Chicago, where mayors for a long time kept the business community in check by saying, you pay me, I'll take care of you, and that was the way it worked.
Right.
But the
Long
people,
history of governors going to jail.
we have a lot of governors going, right? So this is a very real problem, and we don't want to make light of it. He has a lot of power, and institutions have to make very hard decisions about how to fight him, whether they can stay in business or not, and many will fold. They always do, but that's why um, the way these autocrats are overcome comes from the people.
Right.
Right? Those of us with less to lose are braver somehow than the rich billionaires who will cave every time to protect their billions. So we
Yeah.
can't count on them. And I think I told you last time, those billionaires have basically said, to hell with ordinary Americans. We're going to take the money. We're going to take the tax money. They can pay the difference in their tariffs. And I just think when we win, we got to go after them. And I think
Yes.
this last week, I'm going to say it again, raise the marginal tax rates, put in a real inheritance tax, get rid of all of their subsidies on fossil fuels. Just take the fight to them because, they've declared that they want to be our autocrats, our rulers. I'm sorry.
Mhm.
That's not what the book says.
Right,
That's what we are. And if we have to beat them like we did in the 1860s, well, we're going to beat them like we did in the 1860s.
right. In the 1930s and the 1940s under FDR, and FDR is one of the greatest examples of a class traitor. He came from extreme wealth, but he recognized it as a danger to the greater good and to our country.
Yep.
And that with the mass suffering that people endured during the Great Depression because of uh, bizarre right wing economic policy under Herbert Hoover and Calvin Coolidge, he knew that there needed to be more of a balance where workers had rights. They had the right to organize, where people had the right to basic social needs being met, like Social Security. You have a right to actually retire and not work yourself to death until you die, where banks don't have a right to take your money and go belly up and then you have nothing. And that's the foundation of our modern society, of our modern economy. And that is what the Trump administration and all of its billionaire allies is trying to bring down.
And they have been successful at bringing a lot of it down. Americans are worse off. We are less healthy. And in fact, we are in danger of new pandemics because of Bobby Kennedy's insanity, and the cuts to our healthcare system. We're going to have many, many more Americans uninsured. We're going to have insurance rates go up for everybody else. We're going to see
Mhm.
hospitals close. So we are less healthy. We're less wealthy because we're all being tariff taxed, to make up for and then this deficit. I'm not a deficit hawk, but at
Right.
some adding trillions to the deficit
Yes.
limits our ability to move
Right.
forward.
And I mean, let's be honest, okay? So Trump added massively to the debt during his first term, which seems to have been memory hold. Yes, the debt did grow under Biden because we were facing a world recession during a pandemic, and suddenly everyone was, a Keynesian, and we realized that we did need to invest in the economy, and we came out of it in America better than any of the Western countries. We were the envy of Europe. But now to just keep spending like drunken sailors so that the ultra rich can get more tax cuts that they don't need while we're cutting essential services and things that were proven to be extremely important over the years that cut child poverty with increasing food stamp payments, and with having the best response to COVID, having vaccines come out within a year, that is a miracle. And now we want to claw all that back. All of the scientific research, the grant making process has been completely destabilized and debilitized under Trump, all in the name of a smash and grab for the most powerful in this country, and bringing America to its knees when we don't need to be. There is no crisis other than the one that Trump has created. Same with this tariff problem, these tariffs, it's solving a problem that he keeps creating. We did not need to start trade wars with countries. This was a choice. And the fact that he is just considered to be some kind of economic genius has just always been bizarre to me because, I mean, how can someone with 4 or 6, bankruptcies be considered to be a savvy businessman? If you or I did that, we'd be wiped out. Our families, would be on the streets. That's not the way normal people function.
Yeah. Well, look, there's nothing normal about him, and there's nothing normal about this time. You were absolutely right about the state we're in. And people want to know, what do we do about it? And it's just, there are a lot of things we can do. There are a lot of things we are doing about it. First, I should assure people, I mean, the Democratic brand has suffered an awful lot, from years and years and years of marketing on the right wing, but also some self-inflicted wounds.
Right.
But Democrats are doing a pretty good job right now. I mean, my Senator Dick Durbin, who is retiring, he's not young, but he's having the old lion is roaring. He's been out there, uh, on this Ghislaine, what, how do you ever pronounce her name? Maxwell.
Maxwell.
He's demanding that we see the tapes of the uh, interview that she just got with Trump's lawyers. Um,
Ron Wyden from Oregon has been following the money.
Following money beautifully, right? So we're beginning to push back on the this story really hurts Trump. Keep it in the news.
Yeah,
Don't let people walk away from it. Let's figure out where $1.1 billion or 1.3 billion, I can't remember. It's a lot of money that was in this Epstein story. So it's more complicated than just the trafficking, than the horrible trafficking
yeah,
of young women.
right.
Um, it, it's the financial crimes and everything else. Let's get to the bottom of it. I'm sure Trump doesn't want anybody to see these suspicious activity reports from banks. I bet they were in boxes in Mar-a-Lago, back when.
Yeah.
But keep that in the news. But also with ICE doing its terrible thing, it's so important that everybody get to know your neighbors.
Mhm.
Get your neighbors, because when ICE comes for somebody on your block and says that's a Trendagua gang member from some country, you want to be able to say, no, it's not. That's Bob, who works in the school cafeteria. You know what I
Right.
mean? Want to be able to protect our neighbors, and that will do an enormous amount to and then as the next election comes, let's not just vote in unbelievable numbers, but show up at the polling places to protect them. Because guess what's going to happen? Those 10,000 new ICE people, they're going to be going to polling places saying there are illegals voting here, and they're going to try and disrupt the election or
Right.
suppress turnout. And we can't let them get away with it.
And that's why it's so important for us to keep holding these massive protests because we know the heavy-handed tactics that the Trump administration is using with trying to seize voter rolls. And you're absolutely right that, one of the reasons why Trump wanted this private police force, giving ICE just billions upon billions of dollars with 175 billion in his budget bill, that's like bigger than the military in Russia that is committing atrocities all the time against Ukraine in a war. He wants that because it's beyond just rounding up immigrants. It's his private police force. They will be at the polls. But the more they see the pushback from the people that we are not going to tolerate this, the harder it will be because because countries don't just fall to dictators in a country like ours. We are a big country. We are a diverse country. We are a country where for the last 250 years, we have had a democracy. Not a perfect one, but we have. We do not have the same history of many of the countries that have fallen to autocracies in history. And one of the ways that we can exert our power is by reminding them that we are citizens, not subjects, and we're not going to go quietly.
Yeah. And Americans, I think, feel that. Jeffrey Epstein was a dam breaking moment, and people are looking at Trump with new eyes. So
Yes.
let's not let him off the hook. Let's make sure Americans see him for the felon, for the sexual predator that he is, and understand that he's a grifting pig who will
Yeah.
do nothing but damage the rest of us. And I think the recent Gallup poll numbers show that Americans are seeing it. I mean, they really are seeing it. He's underwater everywhere, including on the economy, including on tariffs, including on foreign policy. This man was going to end all the wars on day one. He was such a
Right.
great leader. How many dead in Ukraine? How many dead
In
in
Gaza.
how many dead in Gaza because this man is incompetent and afraid and unwilling to be a leader when the world needs one? I mean, sorry, America has a role to play in the world. We
And
have done it.
and he's also malevolent. I mean, he does not care about human suffering. If you showed him those pictures of starving children in Gaza, he would not care. And I'm sorry, that is not the kind of leader that we deserve.
Susan, this is the man who sent that Christy Nome to have a fashion shoot in front of prisoners at CCOT. It's just despicable.
Mhm.
There's no bottom to this
No,
administration. And there's no,
no,
by the way, in a normal administration where you disagree with them, you can fight in Congress, you can push back on their bills. There is no safety while they're in office.
no.
None. We have got to get them out of office.
Right. And, I know that there is an argument amongst people on the left or just, people who oppose Trump. The Epstein thing, is that a distraction? And I strongly disagree with that. I mean, that's a fine debate to have on tactics. But to me, this goes to the essential depravity of who Donald Trump is, who he is associated with, what he has done. And this shows once and for all for the reputation that he somehow cultivated as, despite lying, being a truth teller, being someone that, you trusted in some way. You
Yeah.
can't trust a man who refused to release a list after promising people for years.
Yeah. You're absolutely right about the just there are no words for what a horrible person this man is. But there's a different issue as well. One of the reasons why America was fascinated with this Epstein case is that ordinary Americans think rich and powerful men are getting away with all kinds of things that are depraved, but also just terrible for us. And so this administration was going to get to the bottom of it and take the powerful men who are controlling all kinds of things and end it. And now it turns out he's just one of them and he won't end it. Right. But the rest of us on our side have to understand that Americans really do feel the game is rigged against them. And we have to have really good. And we are starting to offer really good solutions. And you and I talked about some in the beginning, including
Mhm.
putting real taxes on these wealthy people, ending the support they're getting from our government in terms of giveaways, and really balancing the playing field so that work counts again.
Right. Absolutely. I mean, what in Trump's budget addresses, the working class voters that he claims to represent? I have not seen anything. All I see is a budget that will make people poorer across the spectrum unless you are at that very top. Unless you have Jeff Bezos money, good luck to you. Your healthcare is about to get worse. Your energy costs are about to jump. I mean, this is not a budget that helps regular people in any sense, and it goes on and on. I mean, if you are a student in college, your student aid is about to get slashed. If you have kids in public schools, we're about to have classes jammed, 40 kids in a class, schools having to close, teachers being laid off because they will not be able to function with a budget like this.
That's right. And again, Democrats won this week. They pushed hard and they got the government to release more than $1 billion they were illegally impounding for schools. But there's
Right.
more needs to come. I mean, we are fighting and we're winning these small battles, and we are pointing out the horror show as often as we can. It's hard to keep up with it, but we have to throw them out, and we're organizing to
Yeah.
do it. Whether you are bored with Jeffrey Epstein's story or not, it goes to the heart of, is he on the side of the rich and powerful, or is he one of those predators, and
Hmm.
predators, sexual predators, but also predators on America? People who
Right.
are right, robber baron-y stuff, or is he fighting for ordinary Americans? And he's not, and that's why this story's important.
Right. And if there's nothing to hide, why did Speaker of the House, Mike Johnson, who, is Trump's little lapdog, why did he send the House home for 5 weeks in the summer rather than deal with votes on releasing Epstein documents? There's
Well,
nothing to
they have
hide. You
plenty to
stay there.
There's plenty to hide, and they are hiding. And Mike Johnson, oh please, what a pathetic spectacle! You really do insult little lapdogs when you compare them with one.
Sorry. I know some
Dogs are a
lovely
loyal,
lapdogs.
wonderful species, and he is just, I don't know. There,
Yeah.
only a human being could be so pathetic.
And he's facing a revolt in his own party. That's why he had to send them home, because it's not just Democrats. I mean, Summer Lee, who's on the House Oversight Committee, she pushed a vote through successfully, but she wasn't able to do that unless she won over the support of free Republicans, because they're seeing a problem from their voters, especially MAGA voters, who are like, look, we've been wanting the Epstein files for years. Trump promised us that he would release them, that he would unleash justice on this awful ring of pedophiles. What is going on? This is a conspiracy. And, for once, they're onto something. There clearly is a conspiracy, because otherwise, why not fulfill your promises and release it?
Well, if he's part of it, you know,
Right.
and,
Absolutely.
right? And I mean, we know Jeffrey Epstein was offering art buying services. He was offering tax evasion services, as
Mhm.
well as um, uh, uh, prostituting these poor, helpless young
Right.
girls.
He
But
regarded young girls as just another commodity, and so did Maxwell. And the idea that she could be let out of prison to try and save Trump's ass here, when she is a predator who destroyed the lives of so many young girls, I mean, that's just unconscionable.
Trump's abuse of the pardon power, which began on day one, is all unconscionable. I mean, it makes you want to revise the Constitution so that a president can't do that anymore. Yeah, uh, but again, America elected this terrible, terrible man, and terrible things are happening to all of us. And honestly, that predator never should get out of jail. And maybe she won't, but she was subpoenaed, to testify in front of Congress, and he doesn't want her saying anything that. So he'll dangle that pardon over her head like they dangled a conviction over the mayor of New York, right? They
Right. Eric Adams. Yep.
One thing these guys are good at is they know how to leverage power like mobsters. I
Yes.
know where your children live, right? We're going to send them pizzas, right?
Hmm.
The right wing is into the mobster moment, and
Right.
uh,
Threatening judges, threatening elected officials. I mean, look at that tragedy, not so long ago in Minnesota, where the former Speaker of the House was gunned down along with her husband. I mean, they have turned people into target practice as a way to get what they want, and it's a very dangerous moment. And that's why it's very important for the movement against Trump to be nonviolent, because they want those confrontations with ICE, with the Marines, with the National Guard, and it's important not to give them those moments.
sure, absolutely peaceful, but absolutely disciplined, not
Yes.
cooperation with them at every possible way. Look, Susan, I love being an American, and we get to speak out against these guys,
Yeah.
even if they are silencing NPR across the country. You and I get to do this. We're gonna fill the void with maybe not 10 big news organizations, but with tens of thousands of voices of ordinary Americans who are
Yes.
stand up to this. And it is a dangerous and difficult time. But as I tell young people, you're lucky to live in a time that matters. What you do makes a difference.
It
And it will
does.
make a difference. It's going to echo for generations. So stand up and make a difference. And I find that people are brave and they're willing to do it. Not the billionaires who, are cowards and they're worried that their stuff will be taken, their toys will be taken. Oh my God, I might lose one of my homes on Martha's Vineyard. I mean, really, seriously. But the rest of us, we know what we're fighting for. We're fighting for our kids, we're fighting for our country, and we're not going to be stopped by them. Not
Right.
going
Yeah, and that's why it's important to build our communities. We have a great community online with Lincoln Square, and it's great to see that people are making connections across the country and beyond, with people who believe in our democracy and who, believe in the golden rule. And that's what life is supposed to be about. But beyond that, I think you make such a powerful um, point about getting to know our neighbors, because I think that is something that we have gotten away from. And that's long before the pandemic, when, of course, for a period we were all in our houses and very isolated. But that isolation has, started. I mean, I know you live in the city of Chicago, so it's probably easier for you to see your neighbors than, some of us who, might live in the suburbs or more rural areas. But, it's our communities that's our home. And, um, for me, the fact that I live in a community with people who value great schools and value our trails, and um you feel that sense of community, that's something that you can't replicate with AI. And that's something that we can't let Trump destroy either. And so, um, if one of the outcomes of this is that we have a fairer society, a more just democracy, and we start to rebuild trust with our neighbors and those relationships, that will be a big positive. It's going to be a long road to get there, but there are things that we can do every day for that. And so, I really appreciate these conversations with you, so that, of course, we talk about the news and the headlines and what it all means. But when it comes down to it, it comes down to what each and every one of us does every day as people in our own lives. And it's great to talk to you, because you never lose sight of that, Edwin.
Thank you. I really appreciate it. And these are fun for me too.
Good. Well, I'm glad we will have you back next week, and thanks to everyone who joined us today.